The less talk, the more peace. Have you ever woken up feeling like the world is already screaming at you? Before you even get out of bed, there it is, a flood of notifications, messages, emails, breaking news, voices, opinions, arguments, everyone talking, everywhere, and yet, in the middle of all that noise, you feel empty, unsettled, disconnected, not because you haven't heard enough, but because you haven't heard yourself. This is the world we live in now, a world where silence is feared, where talking is a currency. The louder you speak, the more you're noticed, and the more you talk, the more you're expected to say. But have you ever wondered, why is it that with all this talking, there's still so little peace? We speak to connect, but we end up misunderstood. We shout to be heard, but no one truly listens. We post, we comment, we debate, yet inside, something is missing. There's a storm, and it's not out there, it's within, a storm of unspoken emotions, of restless thoughts, of words we regret, and silence we avoid. But what if the path to peace isn't found in more words, but in fewer? What if stillness, the kind that feels uncomfortable at first, is actually the doorway to clarity, to healing, to truth? In the teachings of the Buddha, peace is never something we chase, it's something we uncover, when we stop running, and start seeing, when we stop talking, and begin listening, not just to others, but to the quiet whispers within ourselves, the voice of awareness, the sound of presence. So today, we begin a different journey, not one of endless talking, but one of deeper seeing, a journey into the wisdom of saying less, and living more. A journey into the silence that isn't empty, but full of answers. In Buddhism, the most dangerous weapon is not a sword or a gun, or even a clenched fist, it's the tongue, small in size, but capable of causing pain that echoes through lifetimes. The Buddha taught us, words can both hurt and heal. When they are both true and kind, they can change the world. But how often do we speak without awareness? How often do we let our emotions drive our words, words that wound, divide, deceive, and once released, can never be taken back? There is a law in Buddhism called karma, the law of cause and effect. We often think of karma as actions, but in truth, speech is action, and it carries just as much weight. Every word we speak plants a seed of peace, or a seed of suffering. Let me tell you a story. A young monk once asked the Buddha, "Master, which is worse, the violence of the hand, or the violence of the tongue?" The Buddha replied, "A wound caused by the body can heal, but a wound caused by words may last for lifetimes." Then he looked at the monk and said, "The tongue, when not guarded by mindfulness, is like a sharp blade hidden in silk." Have you ever said something in anger that you didn't mean, but it was too late? Have you ever been on the receiving end of harsh words that haunted you for years? This is the karma of speech. It is subtle, but powerful. The Buddha identified 4 types of unwholesome speech. 4 doors through which suffering walks in. First is false speech, lies that twist reality, that break trust, that cover our fears in illusion. Second is divisive speech, gossip, rumors, words spoken behind someone's back that break apart friendships and families. Third is harsh speech, words filled with anger, contempt, or sarcasm, weapons sharpened by the ego. And fourth is idle chatter, speech without purpose, just noise to fill the silence, because we're afraid of what silence might reveal. Each of these brings suffering, to others, and to ourselves. And here's what's profound, even if no one else hears you, you hear you. Your speech shapes your inner world. Your words, even whispered in private, become your karma. So what happens when we constantly complain? We reinforce a mind of dissatisfaction. What happens when we lie? We fracture our integrity. When we gossip, we water the seeds of judgment in our own hearts. No one escapes the karma of speech, but no one is trapped by it either. The moment you become mindful of your words, you begin to transform your world. The Buddha didn't just warn us about wrong speech. He gave us a way out. It begins with silence, and then with right speech. But before we learn how to speak with wisdom, we must understand the weight of our words. And remember, sometimes, the most compassionate thing you can say, is nothing at all. If our words can create suffering, then they can also create healing. If speech has the power to destroy, it also has the power to liberate. The Buddha did not teach us to be silent forever. He taught us to speak wisely. He taught us something rare in this noisy world, something called right speech, one of the Eightfold Noble Path. Right speech is not just about saying nice things. It's a discipline of awareness, a practice of compassion, a deep training of the heart. So what is right speech? The Buddha gave us a simple, powerful test. Before you speak, ask yourself 5 questions. Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it spoken with loving kindness? Is it spoken at the right time? Is it spoken gently? If the answer is yes to all 5, then your words are a gift of wisdom, healing, and peace. But if even one of these is missing, perhaps silence is more powerful. Let me share a story with you. A lay follower once asked the Buddha, "Master, I have a sharp tongue. I speak what I feel. Is honesty not a virtue?" The Buddha smiled and replied, "Truth is like a sword. It must be wielded with compassion, or it becomes violence." He went on to say, "Better to speak a kind falsehood that leads to peace, than a harsh truth that creates war." But then he paused, and better still, he said, is to speak a truth, with kindness, at the right time. Like cool water to a thirsty traveler. This is right speech. It doesn't mean avoiding the truth, it means speaking it with wisdom and love. It means waiting for the right moment, using the right tone, and carrying the right intention. In today's world, where people speak to win, to argue, to dominate, right speech becomes a revolutionary act. Imagine a world where people pause before speaking, where people choose kindness over ego, where conversations become bridges, not battlefields. Imagine a home where words are used to comfort, not control. Imagine a mind where your inner voice is no longer critical or fearful, but patient, compassionate, wise. That's what the Buddha envisioned, not silence as escape, but speech as a sacred practice, a tool for awakening. So ask yourself, do your words bring light or shadow? Do they bring people closer, or push them away? Do they mirror your ego, or reflect your awakening? Because every word you speak is a brushstroke on the canvas of your karma, and in the quiet spaces between those words lies the path to freedom. There's a silence that isn't emptiness. It's not awkward, it's not uncomfortable, it's not cold, it's alive. It's the silence that arises when we no longer need to impress, defend, argue, or explain. The silence that allows us to truly see. The Buddha spent long stretches in silence. So did great Zen masters, forest monks, and sages of every tradition. Why? Because they understood, the truth doesn't shout, it whispers. Quietly, beneath the noise of the mind, they knew that in every human heart, there's a place beyond words, a stillness that reveals what speech can only point to. In a world addicted to noise, silence becomes radical. It confronts us, it unsettles us, because in silence, there's no one to convince, no audience, no likes, no comments, just you, with your breath, your thoughts, your shadows, and maybe. That's exactly why we avoid it, but that's also why we need it. There's a Zen saying, when the mouth is closed, the mind begins to speak. When the mind quiets, wisdom begins to speak. There once was a student who asked his master, "Why do you not answer my questions with words?" The master smiled and pointed to a flower. The student waited. No words came, only wind, only light, only breath, and then, tears filled the student's eyes. In that silent moment, he understood more than 1,000 sermons. Silence is not a retreat from life, it's a return to it. It brings you back to the present, to the weight of your body, the rhythm of your breath, the sensations in your hands, the feeling of aliveness. Now, in silence, you see how restless the mind is, how loud your thoughts are, but as you keep sitting with it, something magical happens. The chaos slows, the mind softens, the heart opens, and slowly, like dawn through a window, clarity enters. You begin to hear the voice beneath all other voices, the one that doesn't speak in words, but in knowing, in stillness, in presence, and it tells you, you don't have to be anyone else, you don't have to prove anything, you are already enough. Just as you are. This is the gift of silence, not silence as escape, but silence as home, so try it, turn off the music, step away from the noise, don't fill every silence with sound, instead, sit, breathe, be still. Let silence teach you what noise cannot, because in the silence, you'll start to see, you'll start to feel, you'll start to wake up, and when you do speak again, your words will carry depth, grace, truth, because they came from the one place that cannot lie, the still, silent center of your being. Why do we talk so much? Why do we feel the need to explain, to justify, to interrupt, to make sure we're heard? Why do we rush to speak, even when silence would be wiser? The answer is simple, but not easy. It's the ego. The ego is addicted to words. Words are how it survives. Words are how it shines. Words are how it hides its fear of being. No one, the ego says, let me speak so they'll see I'm smart. Let me interrupt so I'm not ignored. Let me talk about me, because if I'm not the center of the story, do I even exist? That's the illusion. The ego needs an audience, it needs applause, it needs validation, constantly. It doesn't care about truth. It only cares about recognition, but the true self, the awakened self, the one that sits quietly behind your eyes, it has nothing to prove, it doesn't need praise, it doesn't fear being forgotten, it simply is, still, whole, silent, because it knows something the ego doesn't. Peace is found not by being loud, but by being real. There's a powerful Zen story. A monk asked the master, "How can I find enlightenment?" The master replied, "Less self, more silence." The monk was confused. But how? The master just smiled, poured tea into a full cup until it overflowed, and said nothing. That silence was the answer, because when the cup is full of me, there's no room for truth. Only when we stop talking, stop defending, stop performing, can the truth pour in. The Buddha didn't teach us to destroy the ego, he taught us to see through it, to watch it arise, to notice when it wants to speak just to be seen, to smile gently, and choose silence instead. This is not weakness, this is spiritual maturity, because when we don't speak to seek approval, we become deeply free. We are no longer driven by comparison, competition, or control, we begin to live. Not as a personality, but as a presence. Can you feel the difference? The ego talks to fill space, the self sits in stillness and fills the room, the ego seeks to impress, the self seeks to understand, the ego yells, the self whispers, the ego wants attention, the self offers love, and the moment we begin to observe this quietly, without judgment, we begin to return to ourselves. So the next time you feel the need to prove yourself, pause, breathe, notice who's speaking. Is it your fear, or your freedom, your ego? Or your essence? Because true peace begins, not when we're heard by others, but when we finally hear ourselves. We live in a world that never stops, the noise, the screens, the rush, the constant doing, and sometimes we forget what it feels like to simply be. But what if I told you that the path to peace isn't found in doing more, but in doing less? What if the key to a quiet life isn't about escaping the noise, but about creating space, sacred pauses, moments of stillness in between? The Buddha taught us something radical. Silence isn't the absence of sound, it's the presence of awareness. We don't need to wait for the world to become quiet, we need to create quiet in ourselves. And that's where the sacred pause comes in. It's not about shutting out the world. It's about cultivating moments throughout the day when we stop, when we breathe, when we simply exist. The sacred pause is when you stop what you're doing for a few seconds, and just breathe. It's when you sit quietly for a moment before answering a question, just to check, is this what I want to say? Is this in line with my truth? It's when you turn off the noise for a minute to listen to your heart. It's when you take a walk, not to achieve something, but to simply be present with the earth beneath your feet. These pauses, they are the sacred moments that allow you to return to yourself, and in those pauses, you begin to find your true rhythm. Let me share a practice with you, a simple yet powerful one. Take 30 seconds right now, wherever you are, and close your eyes, breathe in deeply, hold it for a moment, and slowly exhale, pause, feel the space between each breath, feel the stillness in your body. This isn't a trick, this is a tool to reconnect to the present. You see, the more we fill our lives with distractions, the further we get from the truth within. But when we pause, even just for a moment, we come back to now. And in the present moment, there is peace. In Zen Buddhism, we call this mindful breathing. It's a sacred pause, it's the breath that anchors us. The Buddha didn't ask us to meditate for hours to find peace, he asked us to be mindful in the small moments. In the pauses between our thoughts, our words, our actions, think about it. What would it be like to live a life where, between every task, there was a sacred pause, where every conversation was preceded by a moment of awareness, before the words flowed out? What if you took a pause before you checked your phone, before you responded to an email, before you jumped into a conversation? These sacred pauses may seem small, but they create vast space for clarity, for peace, for wisdom. The power of the sacred pause is in its ability to slow us down. It reintroduces us to the present, to the only moment that truly exists. When we pause, we see things we would otherwise miss. We begin to feel the stillness inside, we begin to notice the quiet whispers of our heart, and when we listen closely, we realize that in those whispers, there is all the guidance we need. So, let's practice together, not just once, but throughout the day. Let's make our lives a series of sacred pauses, and through those pauses, may we build a quiet life, a life of presence, a life of peace, a life where the noise outside doesn't matter, because the quiet inside is louder than anything. You've walked this journey with me, through the noise, through the chaos, through the stories that told you to speak louder, to prove more, to chase after the fleeting applause of the world. But now, as we stand at the edge of all that noise, I ask you to take one final step, into silence, into the stillness of the heart. This is where the true revelation happens, not in words, not in action, not in achieving or acquiring, but in the quiet, the deep, unspoken peace that resides within us all. In the silence of the heart, we find truth, not a truth based on logic, or reason, or the approval of others. It's a truth that is felt, not spoken, a truth that doesn't need to convince anyone. Because it is, and in this silence, we remember that the true self has never been lost, it has always been here, beneath the layers of noise, beneath the layers of the ego, beneath the stories we tell ourselves. The heart doesn't need validation, it doesn't need praise or attention, it simply needs to be. And when we return to this stillness, we return to our true nature, the nature of peace, of love, of grace. There is an ancient saying in Buddhism, the mind is a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. When the mind is quiet, the heart is heard, and the heart speaks in whispers, it speaks in presence, it speaks in the way we treat others with kindness. The way we listen deeply, the way we just are. You see, the final revelation isn't some grand truth outside of us, it's the realization that everything we've been searching for is already here, the silence, the peace, the love, the freedom, it was always within us. So as we end this journey together, I invite you to take a final pause, not to look outside, but to look within, to listen to your heart. To feel the stillness that resides in you, and to rest in the peace that is your true nature. In this stillness, you are already free, in this stillness, you are already home. And with this silence, we step into the world, not to be louder, not to be seen, but simply to be, to live, to love, to breathe, and to remember, always, that peace is not found in the noise, but in the quiet place where the heart speaks. Thank you for walking this path of silence with me. May your heart always find peace in the stillness, and may your life be filled with the quiet of true wisdom.